Well, for more on the Global Gender Gap Report, I spoke with Janice Reals Ellig. She's the co-CEO of the Chadick Ellig headhunting firm and chair of the Women's Forum in New York. I started by asking her what she thinks about this data.
Well, it's very depressing because we're seeing that we're losing ground here in the U.S. And it seems from year over year, we haven't made much progress. And part of that is because the other countries are making more progress than we are. So while we think we're making 3 steps ahead, others are going 5 steps ahead. And so we are losing ground. And even the other countries as well, you know, they have maybe 68 have made progress, but 74 have lost. So they're not closing the gap. And I think the report says it'll be 170 years before we will reach some parity or get progress. And that is not a good sign. So I am hoping that the leaders who meet in Davos will take a look at this and really put some attention to it, and what are we going to do to really move the needle for women across all countries.
Now, you did mention some very dire statistics, but let's look at some of the countries that are making progress. We saw that the top 4 nations leading the report are all Scandinavian countries. What are they doing right?
Well, if you look at the statistics in terms of where they are really making progress and where they are high in their rankings, it's really the political empowerment of women. So they're holding office, they're in the parliaments, they have given women the employment opportunities, and so therefore they have the economic opportunity and making they're financially better off, and therefore health-wise they're better off as well. So in all of those categories they are better, but it comes because women are empowered politically and in business. And when you have those 2 drivers, that means that the decision-making that happens in Parliament and in business is moving women forward. And that's what has to happen in the U.S. as well.
Now, the report actually mentions some other key areas. You mentioned the importance of political empowerment, also with economic opportunities, but there's also educational attainment and health and survival. How do all these as a group really play into cutting this divide we're seeing when it comes to gender equality?
Well, women have made great progress, particularly in the U.S. in education. We're number 1 there with a number of other countries. We have not progressed into the positions, and those have gone away. And we're not employing as many women who have the education. So that has not put us into the top level positions. So they're not all correlated. And whereas if we had more women in the decision-making positions, that would really help us to move ahead. And then with regard to health, you know, I think the education piece does help women to be more educated with their health. So that helps us too. So we're better off there.
Now, economic inequality is partly due to some of these imbalances in salaries that we're seeing. As you were mentioning, some of the dire statistics and women around the world earning on average about half of what men are earning, despite working longer hours. And this is regardless of region. So as we look around the world, what are some of the solutions so that in another 10 years, we're not having the same conversation about the status of women?
Well, again, I think that it has to be, you know, your businesses have to look to make sure that they look at their jobs in their companies and index them to the market. So if a man and a woman are applying for a position in a company, regardless of what they're being paid outside at another company, they should be coming into that role at that position's current rate and what it should be paid indexed to the market. And there are some states now, Massachusetts being one of them, that is saying you cannot ask what that employee was making prior. That may take hold in other states as well. So it really is incumbent upon a company to make sure that there's equality in terms of what they are paying for the job. And the job should have a market rate. And that company should make sure that that's what they are paying. So it starts at the top with the CEO holding accountable the people that are in charge of hiring, that they are paying the market rate, and that they are bringing in the right number of women and minorities at the top of the house.